All right, awesome. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our speakers. We have Dustin Angel, the Director of Education at Archbold Biological Station, and he is an environmental educator and conservation photographer living and working in the headwaters of Florida's Everglades. As the Director of Education at Archbold Biological Station in Venus, Florida, he builds community relationships and interprets ecological research for audiences of all ages. As an artist, he uses photography to document the science and conservation challenges of the region and people trying to solve them. Dustin is the current president of the League of Environmental Educators in Florida. All right, and then Megan Selva, she is the environmental programs coordinator for the City of Melbourne's Eco Division. She is a homegrown Floridian who began her environmental education career as a park ranger in Tampa after graduating from the University of Central Florida with a bachelor's in environmental science and a bachelor's in the fine arts, or in the arts in Spanish. She then moved to Washington State, where she was immersed in a wooden boat building and sailing culture. She became a sailing and rowing instructor for youth programs and lived off the grid to learn the benefits of a sustainable lifestyle. She moved to Florida and became an Archbold Biological Station education intern and executive assistant to research assistant at Archibald's Buck Island Ranch. Megan is proud to be working for the City of Melbourne as the new environmental programs coordinator. She is currently a board member for the League of Environmental Educators of Florida. All right, and so I'm going to turn it over now to Megan.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So first, I want to just talk about, like, where are we in the world? As you can see up on the slide, there's a state there called Florida. Woo, we're all there. Maybe some of us are not. And it's a beautiful, beautiful day here in Florida. If you guys can find, there's a line in the middle of Florida, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. If you can find it, can everybody see that little line in the middle of Florida? And then if you can pinpoint, can you see Lake Okeechobee? If you can, say yes. All right, next slide. So where I am right now is on the Atlantic Coastal Ridge. I'm at Wickham Park in Melbourne, Florida. If you go to the next slide, you'll see the park right there. I am hanging out on the trail in this scrub habitat here in Melbourne, Florida, located on the Atlantic Coastal Ridge. And so I just want to talk about that with you all today, to get to know what is the scrub, like what is the scrub habitat, and history and stories behind it with our friend Dustin here. So further ado, next slide. So where Dustin is currently is on the Lake Wales Ridge. So that's circled right there in the middle of Florida. Can you guys see that line in the middle of Florida? That's where Dustin is, and I am on the coast right there. So we're located on the Atlantic Coastal Ridge, which is billions of years old, and he is located on the Lake Wales Ridge, which is millions of years old as well. And there's Archbold right at the southern point of the Lake Wales Ridge. Could you tell us a little bit more about the Lake Wales Ridge, Dustin? Thanks for being with us.
Oh, I am very happy to be here. Good morning, buenos dias, everyone. It's a beautiful day in Florida. I saw we have someone on that's originally from New York, Bailea. Good to see you. I'm from New York too, but I've been in Florida for 8 years now, soaking up the sunshine. Well, as you saw from the picture from space, there is that little white strip in the middle of the state. Bailey, sorry, Bailey. That little white strip in the middle of the state, and you may have never noticed it before. But what it is an ancient island of white sand. You can see right below me, look at all this white sand at my feet. Sometimes when we show people photos of this, they think that there's snow on the ground, but that is just, we call it sugar sand. beautiful white sand. And if you could go back in time in a time machine, sometimes Florida would have been much bigger because the ocean was lower. And at other times when the ocean was higher, most of Florida would be underwater, except for these sandy islands. In the last million years, the ocean has been higher than today 4 times. If we went back even to 3 million years, the ocean was 100 feet higher than it is today. So that means almost everybody living in Florida, including those other ridges like where Megan is, that would have all been underwater. But the Lake Wales Ridge here was probably still high and dry because I'm at 130 feet above the sea level right here. Because it's so old and high and dry, it's the oldest of the ridges, the highest of the ridges in Florida, the Lake Wales Ridge. That means that it has more rare species. Because if you've ever heard of the Hawaiian Islands or the Galapagos Islands, when you have an island or an island chain and species are stuck there for a long time, they start to adapt, they start to evolve and meet those conditions. So I've got a plant right here that I want to show you. That's one that you get mostly on the central ridges. I'd be pretty surprised if Megan had this out in Melbourne. This is actually a tree. It's actually an oak tree. But do you see how these leaves are they're curled up and they're pointing up to the sky? And that's because it's hot out here. There's a lot of sun. You notice there's no tree canopy above me here. It's all sunshine. But sunshine is good for plants, but it can also be bad because it makes them evaporate their water and they can dry up. So this has a real waxy surface to protect the leaf from the heat, and it curls up and points up towards the sun when it's at noon to just protect itself from water loss, which is pretty amazing. One other thing I want to show you before I turn it back over to Megan is there are some flowers starting to bloom, and I bet Megan might have this one over by her too. Check this out. These are called shiny Lionias. Can you see? Ooh, there we go. I have my little macro lens on there. And they're related to blueberries. Okay, that's it for me. I'll turn it back over to you, Megan.
Thank you, Dustin. Yes, cool stuff you pointed out. I also do have a Lionia here, the same species as you do over there. I think it's cool. I know that, it's been hard virtual school and everything, but I think it's really awesome that we can like compare and contrast 2 different scrub habitats in 2 different places at the same time. So it's really cool that you've also got this really nice flower. I'm trying to get a good look at it. It's a little blurry on mine. I also have that you might have, Dustin, is a rusty Lionia, and it's also blooming, flowering right now. And earlier there was a bee on it pollinating, but gone now. I'm gonna turn it back around. So yeah, I wanted you guys just to take a look and tell me in the chat 3 things you notice about this habitat. What are 3 things that you notice?
We have trees, sand, ponds,
Sand, yeah.
super sandy.
Lots of sand, right? Where do you guys think this sand came from? So just like over at the Lake Wales Ridge, it all came from the Appalachian Mountains. It's erosion from the quartz sand from the Appalachian Mountains that just eroded away and came down to Florida and created these islands that we are on now, these ancient dune islands. Should we pull up our first poll question?
Absolutely. All right. So here we go. All right, so I just launched the poll, and the very first poll question is, what are 3 ways you can tell you are in a Florida scrub? And this is multiple choice, meaning you can select more than just one option. The first thing is remnants of a wildfire or prescribed fire, sandy soil, you are in Florida, there are ducks walking around, and there are a lot of big shady trees present. So remember to select as many or as few options that you notice. And then those of you that are on Facebook, unfortunately, you cannot vote, but please submit your answers in the comment section of the live Facebook post. So we'll give it about 20 more seconds for those of you that have not voted. Go ahead and get your votes in. All right, give it about 5 more seconds. 3, 2, 1, and done.
All right.
Oh,
Oh,
you got it?
go ahead. So let's get to, we can answer those questions. We talked a little bit about one of those answers, but let's see if you guys know what a Florida scrub is.
No. So the most common was sandy soil, followed by you're in Florida. Next, remnants of a wildfire or prescribed fire, big shady trees present. And then last but not least, there are ducks walking around. So most of you did not select ducks.
That's good. That's really good to know. All right, Dustin, could you answer that for us?
I would be happy to. I love that everybody's noticing the sand. I mean, that's the big thing. So when I take people on tours out here, I always say you can ask 3 questions. 1, am I in Florida? If the answer is yes, you keep going. 2, am I on white sand? And we saw, yeah, there's lots of white sand here. So yes, again. 3rd question, are there any oak trees, any scrub oak trees? There's 4 species. And the answer again here is yes. We've got them all around us. The one I just showed you was one kind of scrub oak. Here's another kind of scrub oak right here. So yeah, and it's very open. You don't see ducks so much. They might be flying over maybe, but they're not hanging out in the sandy areas. And if your scrub is in good condition, if it's a nice, healthy scrub habitat, then it's actually really open like this, where there's not a lot of big, tall trees. And the way it is maintained is actually through fire. Florida is the lightning strike capital of North America. It's pretty amazing. So the lightning back in the day would have caused fires. Today, we don't want wildfires to burn our houses down. So we have teams of trained people. We do this here at Archbold, going around and burning the scrub here to keep it nice and low, because that's what the special plants and animals are adapted to. Remember I said when you're on an island, things can become adapted to that island. And this is an island was an island with a lot of fire. In fact, not just the scrub, but most of the habitats in Florida are made to burn. All right, so Megan, what about you? How is your scrub there different than here?
Yeah, so what are some things that you guys noticed in the chat that's different about, scrub where Dustin is right now and scrub where I am right now? Can you see a difference? You notice a difference? Maybe do you notice that it's more overgrown than his? Taller trees, perhaps? Bigger trees? Yeah, maybe more sand.
Yep, more sand, lots of trees. Can you see the chat, Megan?
Yeah. Awesome. So there is a tree that I want to show you guys. It's like the Florida Christmas tree. It's called the sand pine. And you may see it around. Here's a smaller one. Here's a smaller sand pine tree. And then it can get really big to be like that if there's no prescribed fire. So where Dustin is, he's not going to have a lot of these overgrown sand pine trees. They keep it, the fire keeps that small. What's really cool about these trees though, is that the leaves, if you crush them up, smells like oranges. And it's really good. It means that they're high in vitamin C and you can actually make a tea with it. But in like a healthy scrub habitat, like where Dustin is at Archbold, there's not a lot of this overgrown vegetation. And the scrub oaks, like these are some oak trees we've got, and they're a little too big. And scrub jays don't like those in this scrub habitat. So it's good to have a nice open area with low shrubs, kind of like this little area right here. A little better.
Megan, can you hold steady for a second? You're coming in a little glitchy.
Okay. I want to show you guys this really cool plant that I found. This is a native rosemary bulb. Maybe you guys go to the store and you get rosemary, or you have a rosemary plant. This actually isn't edible. Yeah, it looks spiky. But it's allelopathic, which means it has a chemical that it sprays out so that other plants can't grow around it. So you see this wiregrass is like a little dead. It's probably getting a lot of chemicals on it, but it's pretty barren around this rosemary bulb. Do you have any rosemary bulb where you are, Dustin?
We
Here's a
have
tar flower.
rosemary, Florida rosemary growing at Archbold, but not right where I am here. You actually find that on our highest and driest spots here. We've got a lot of land here. This is about 9,000 acres. It's really big. So I love the rosemary areas because they feel so different. They also smell so good. It's nice aromatherapy. But like Megan was saying, they are doing warfare with all the plants around them, putting in chemicals to kill all the other plants that are competing with them. But that also means that if you are a plant that can adapt to those chemicals in the soil, then you can thrive in a niche, in a spot where nothing else can. So we do have some really rare plants at Archbold that live in those rosemary bulbs that our researchers keep track of and are studying. And there's so much still that we don't know about plants like that. We want to learn about how they live with all the other species. But one thing we don't study here is medicine. I would be so curious to know. I wish the medicine companies would look at some of these really rare species that survive in really difficult conditions, because they've got some cool chemistry going on in there that would be so cool to learn about. But yeah, the rosemary bulbs are really cool.
Dustin,
yeah, and if anybody
for you.
Oh, go ahead.
All right. So, well, two quick questions. The first one is from Mrs. Frost's fifth grade class at Deltona Elementary, and they are wondering if the rosemary plant is considered invasive.
Oh, no, it's totally native. This native rosemary right here, found in this, it's a scrub rosemary.
And one thing we figured out at Archbold is that the rosemary's been here for a long time, because we actually have a lake here. I'm not there right now. It's about 2 miles that way. We have a lake that's really deep. It's about 70 feet deep. And scientists go down, they don't dive down, but they send down tubes and they collect samples from the muck down there. And just like right now, this time of year, you may have noticed pollen in the air from the oaks. They're wind pollinated. When that lands on the lake, it sinks to the bottom. So we actually have a record going back layer by layer by layer, about 40,000 years of plant pollen in our lake. And one thing we see is that rosemary, there's a bunch of rosemary pollen. And during certain times in the ice age, when it was drier in Florida, remember I said they live in the nice high dry spots? When it was drier in Florida, there were a lot of rosemary, more than there is now.
Yes, the force is strong with those plants. So Dustin, you were talking about pollinating flowers, oaks. I've got this myrtle oak here, and it's pollinating, or sorry, it's got pollen here now. And I was wondering if this was wind pollinated or not.
Yep, the oaks are wind pollinated. And, you know, I was reading about wind pollination recently, and it was saying that depending on the type of environment that a tree lives in, you generally see areas that if it's oaks are really, sometimes they're either really tall or some of the tallest trees in a forest, or in an area like this where there's not a lot of growth above it. Wind pollination is really great. When you get into something like a rainforest, and that there's not a lot of wind going through the inside of a rainforest, and it's, you know, closed off with a canopy of trees, you don't see a lot of plants that are wind pollinated. In the rainforest, you might even have like hummingbirds and bats and things like that are pollinating a lot of those plants. But in a nice, you know, open habitat like this, we have lots of oak trees that, it's a little windy today, blowing that pollen around.
Can I ask you guys one more question?
Oh, yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so Megan, I think you were just showing some saw palmettos.
Yes.
We had a question submitted. Are saw palmettos in both habitats, and is it true they don't burn?
So what I have here, they are both located in the Lake Wells Ridge, as well as here on the Atlantic Coastal Ridge. And this one is actually the subspecies of the other saw palmetto. So this is Serenoa repens subspecies. And where Dustin is, he actually doesn't have this saw palmetto species. Correct, Dustin?
Yeah, I have saw
Which is
palmetto,
cool.
but I don't have the kind you have on the coast is more of a grayish blue. The kind I have here is very green. You can see there's a ton of this out here, but I do have a special one too. So this palmetto behind me here is not a saw palmetto, and it's mostly found in the central ridges in Florida. So I'd be surprised if you saw one where you are, Megan. And this is related. This one's more closely related to the sable palm. That's the state tree of Florida, the sable palmetto. But so this looks like that, but it looks like it was crushed into the ground. So you took a palm tree and you just smooshed it, and it does have all of these little hairs off of it, which is one of the ways that you can tell this apart from the saw palmetto. There's some other ways too, but it's one of the ways you can tell it apart from the saw palmetto.
Dustin, can you show a saw palmetto root or trunk that has been affected by a prescribed burn, like that has remnants of a prescribed burn? I can't find one around here because there hasn't been a prescribed burn in a while, but actually, let me see.
Well, it's been, I think, 5 years or so since this spot was burned. So I don't see any more leftover like charred bits on anything. But when you go to a spot that's been burned recently, like, you know, within a year, it's really cool because you can see all the dead trees, but they're not really dead. The saw palmettos burn up, and so do the oaks. They all look dead, and all these charred plants. It's really cool. But just a month later, they start growing back their leaves. The saw palmettos do, and then the oaks start popping right back up from their roots. They're not really dead. And one thing that's cool about that is we don't know how old the oaks are. All we can do, we can count tree rings, but all it's going to tell you is, hey, it burned 5 years ago. We actually did measure the saw palmettos. This took decades and decades of research at Archbold. Dr. Warren Abe Abrahamson did this stuff. And he found that the average age of the Saw Palmettos is around 5,000 years old, and the oldest was 8,000. That's because these, just like the oaks, live as clones. So they grow above ground, but they also grow underground and boop, 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 pop up in different places. So the individual right here, like this part of it, wouldn't be that old. But the seed that this came from, good chance it was thousands of years ago, maybe even 8,000 years ago, that this seed was first germinated out here in the scrub. And one of the things that's amazing to me about that is if you go to back around 10,000 years ago, that's when the last ice age ended. And we used to have, you know, woolly mammoths out here and giant
Sloths.
sloths and oh my gosh, all kinds of cool stuff living in Florida. Maybe a giant sloth came through here and, you know, is rubbing up on this palmetto. I don't know, but I love imagining that kind of thing.
Yeah, that is pretty awesome.
All right, we got one more question about, sorry, I'm kind of throwing in some of these questions, but it goes so well with what you guys are talking about. The question is, can you describe the difficulties of maintaining burn frequencies?
I'm gonna let you, yep, Dustin.
My guess is that one didn't come from an elementary kid school. I think we've got some high school classes on too, right? I think there's a whole bunch of ages on here. Well, it is difficult to make, I know I've got a spoon in my hand, that's for something else, but it is difficult to do fires. You need professionals that are trained. I've been trained, I've helped a little bit, but you have a whole team of people. And at Archbold, we have all of this area all mapped out, our whole property, into different sections. And each one will look at what plants are there, what habitat is it, how often does it need to get burned. For this right here where I am, this gets burned about every 10 years. But if, Bailey, I know, I have this for a reason. But if you're in a pine forest in Florida or a grassland in Florida, you could burn that every 1, 2, 3 years. So those need to get burned a lot. And it's grass. It's not a big scary fire that they're, you know, not real tall grass. Out here it burns less frequently, partly because look, there's a bunch of sand. You need to wait a little while for the plants to get big enough for them to burn. So I could talk about fire for a long time. That's all I'll say about it for now. If you want to know why I have the spoon, it's because I found something cool in the sand here. I found some antlion traps for ants. And I'm going to start, I'll let Megan take back over and do that. But while she's doing that, I'm going to dig around. And if I find an antlion, I'll zoom in on it so you can see what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, thank you, Dustin. So there are teams of, you know, people, organizations that work on maintaining habitat, and especially in Florida with prescribed burns, because it's super important. Here's another coastal saw palmetto, Serenoa repens subspecies that's only found on this coastal scrub. And I've got some more Lionia lucida, some really nice hypericums. We got flowers blooming everywhere. It's springtime. Got some Ilex glabra, which can be found over at the Lake Wales Ridge too. Scrub, a lot of scrub habitat has this Ilex glabra or greenbrier. Yeah, a lot of you may have allergies right now, and it's probably because all of the oak trees are flowering at the moment. Here's a really cool scrub plant. This is a rusty Lionia. Don't know if it's the Lionia Virginia or different one, but it looks really rusty on the top.
We actually had a question of, can you eat Lionia?
No, I don't think you can. There is shiny blueberry out here, which is a blueberry. Oh, right here. And also, let me get down here. This is shiny blueberry. There's different types of blueberries you can find in the scrub, as well as other habitats in Florida that's actually edible. This is pennyroyal. Pennyroyal right here. Let me see if I can get a good. Sorry, okay. Here's pennyroyal. This you can actually dry and make a tea. It's a mint, so it smells really good and minty. Actually, here's some shiny blueberry that's kind of sort of starting to flower. If I can get that on camera for you guys. Hard to see. But yeah. So there are, a lot of edibles, but just be careful, don't try things unless if you know what they are. We've got all kinds of cool stuff out here. How are you doing, Dustin?
I just got one.
Yay! You caught an antlion. I was looking for them all morning and I could not find any. So glad you caught one.
I found one really fast and then I dropped it, and it was a big one. It was really cool, but then I dropped it and I can't find it. So I just got another one, and I'll turn my camera around so you can see this. It's a larva of an insect, and it's called an antlion because they eat ants. So you'll see what it is in a second. Here, let me turn my camera around. Try to get this in focus for you. There it is. You can see that white sand on my hand too. It really does look like glass or sugar. So this thing makes a pit, and when the ants fall to the center of the pit, it grabs it with its big pincers, pulls it underground, and then sucks out its insides. And then it throws the sucked out ant, and it throws it out of its little pit. I love these things. I always think like, if you were shrunk down and were really small, these would be like one of the scariest things out here.
There's an ant on it. Oh.
I saw that. I saw that. Well, right now this is in my hand, so I'm sure it's not thinking about eating. It's probably like, oh my goodness, I need to hide.
Dustin, can you talk about what it actually, the antlion is and what it turns into, like the metamorphosis process?
It does go through a complete metamorphosis like a butterfly does, like a caterpillar. When it's an adult, it looks a lot like a dragonfly. It's not a dragonfly, but it looks a lot like a dragonfly when it's an adult. But this is a baby, and they can live as a baby for a long time, at least a year. And they will pupate underground, make a little chrysalis underground, and then come out and be totally different looking, just like a caterpillar looks like a butterfly. We have a ton of them out here. There's different species.
I think they're
some
cute.
ants are too fast for them to catch, but they'll try to eat anything that they can get. These are easy to find, and you don't have to just be in the scrub for them. You probably have these near buildings where you live. If you look in areas that are protected from the rain, sandy areas that are dry, you'll see all these little pits there. Just get a spoon, and if you can put them in a little animal cage with some sand, go and catch termites and ants and bugs and throw them in the cage. You can watch the antlions pull the insects in and eat them. It's pretty cool.
We are starting to run out of time, but
Okay.
In addition to the animals the antlion that you mentioned, what other types of animals live in scrub habitats?
You want me to take that one?
Well, yeah, go ahead and take it. But I do know that there's a gopher tortoise around here, and I wanted to try to find it and show everybody, looking for its burrow. So that's one special animal that lives in the scrub, is a gopher tortoise. It's endangered, protected, and it's a keystone species, which means it houses, so when there's a prescribed burn or something, it houses over 300 other animal species in its burrow that can be 15 to 20 feet underground long. And they all go in there and they're safe from the fire. That can be indigo snakes, lizards, spiders, rabbits, all kinds of different animals. Can you add to that, Dustin?
Yeah, I mean,
yes.
we love gopher tortoises at Archbold. Archbold is a research station, so we're studying everything, and we've been studying gopher tortoises for something like 50 years here. I mean, it's amazing, and they can live. We don't even know how old they can get. They can live at least 70 years or so, because ones that we found in the 60s that were adults, they're still alive, hanging out here. They're still alive, which is just amazing.
There's also very special bird that's only found in the scrub, only found in Florida, nowhere else in the world.
Yeah, this is the Florida.
Does anybody know what the bird is? Oh, did you say it already?
I'm sorry, I didn't know you were gonna ask.
No, it's okay. Yes, the Florida scrub jay. I heard 3 of them last week. But can you talk a little bit more about the scrub jays? Maybe you can find something you are.
Okay, I muted myself because I was like, I'm like one of those adults that when you're at a museum or something and the educator asks a question and there's all these kids in front of them, there's always an adult that's like, no, me. So Florida scrub jays, we've also been studying for something like 50 years. And yeah, it's the only species of bird that Florida has that's found nowhere else. It's pretty cool. And yeah, it lives in the scrub. It is a threatened species, a federally threatened species. So it's imperiled. Most of the scrub is gone. There's only about something like 15% of the Florida scrub left. So, animals like the scrub jay, they're not doing so great because of that. That's why places like Archbold are really important, where we have the fires to keep it all nice like this. The thing that people like about scrub jays, well, a couple things. One is they can be very friendly. So people who live near the scrub are used to them landing on their hands or even landing on their heads. And then the other thing is that they live in family groups. Most birds don't do this. So they mate for life, and then the brothers and sisters actually will help each other. If they have a little baby brother or sister at the nest, they'll actually get food for them. They'll help defend the nest and defend the family territory from snakes or from other birds.
Dustin,
Scrub jays are really cool.
Can I stop you for a second? I found a gopher tortoise.
Oh, okay, cool.
Okay, I'm gonna try to get close. I don't know if you guys can see him. Oh, he's going in his burrow. Can you guys see the gopher tortoise?
Just barely. You can kind of see the outline of them, but you kind of have to know what you're looking for.
Okay, well, I'm gonna show you his burrow. Hold on. I just saw him and he went back in his burrow. So yeah, here's the gopher tortoise burrow, his little home. It's active. And can't quite see him because he's really scared. So he went back in his burrow. But this is what a gopher tortoise burrow looks like. A little overgrown, big hole. Dang, I really wanted to show you guys that. But yes, there's the gopher tortoise living here, which is great news. Love seeing gopher tortoises.
One of the things that we do here with the tortoises is you can't always find them. Sometimes they're hanging out down in there, like it just went in. We have cameras that are attached to, they're like these long tubes. And so the researchers can put it's like a hose, basically. Put the hose down there with the camera, with a live video feed. And so we're like exploring inside of those long burrows, and we can find if the tortoise is in there, but we also might see bugs, or there could be snakes in there, all kinds of cool stuff live in those.
Yeah, it's a great home for a lot of animals, as well as the gopher tortoise. So last week I saw 3 scrub jays here. I heard one this morning. But I'm not hearing them now. So
They're
I really
camera
want
shy.
to go look at scrub jay.
All right, so we are at that 10:15 mark. I'm fine hanging out for another 5-10 minutes if you guys are. We do have a couple more questions, totally up to you.
And I'll say
Yeah,
we do have a great scrub jay video at Archbold that we'll email out to everybody who registered.
Yeah, if you want more information about scrub habitat, definitely check out Archbold Biological Station, but also check out, go to Merritt Island National Seashore. They have a beautiful scrub there, as well as Malabar scrub, if you're over on this side, Melbourne, and Wickham as well.
And I know there's someone from Fort Myers. There's some scrub on the West Coast too. Oscar Shear State Park has some scrub jays over there too.
All right. So this is kind of like a great question to, well, all right, so we got 2 questions. One, can you use the Christmas tree plants for perfume?
Probably. They smell citrusy, definitely. Pretty sure they'd be safe to put on your skin too. You can make an essential oil probably.
Awesome. And then
That would be cool to make an oil out of it. I mean, I don't know that much about what we call herbalism, but that's a really cool hobby you can get into. And herbalism is about, instead of just learning like how does a plant live in its ecosystem, which is what Archbold does, it's learning about the connection between plants and people, how to use plants for medicine. Just what Megan mentioned, making tea with the sand pine needles. That'd be something that a herbalist would do. And so there's all kinds of cool resources about that stuff out there. And a lot of people, you know, if they'll make their own tonics with, you know, they'll have honey, and then they'll put in other bits of this and that they find in nature that'll, you know, support their immune system or help them when they have a cold, and all kinds of stuff you can do. It's, you know, nature is like is a medicine cabinet, and humans have been using this medicine cabinet for tens of thousands of years. You do have to be careful because sometimes that medicine is potent, and the same thing that can be good for you, if you take too much of it, can be bad for you.
Yes.
But herbalism is really cool.
awesome. And then, so we have another question, says, why is the gopher tortoise endangered?
Dustin.
Sure. Same reason the scrub jay is. It's habitat. In Florida, that is the answer you're going to get for just about everything that's endangered. Because Florida has a lot of people. We have about 1,000 people a day that move to Florida. That's a lot of people.
I think there's like 20 million right now here.
There is, yes, yeah, 20, 21 million. Plus, we have over 100 million visitors to Florida every year. 100 million. That's a lot. When Archbold was founded back, 80 years ago, there were only 2 million people in Florida, and there already were endangered species then. 2 million was enough people to cause problems, and now we're over 20 million. So that's the main thing. So what we do have to do is think about, how can we think win-win? How can we make sure people have what we need, but that we're also making sure that the gopher tortoises and the scrub jays and all that other good stuff has what it needs too. And this is really smart because we are dependent on nature. It is our life support. It's where we get our food, our air, our water. So we need to be thinking win-win for us and nature.
I love that. That was well said, Dustin. Thank you. Do you have any suggestions for the best time to visit the scrub habitat to view the plants and animals?
Depends on how hot you like it and what you're looking for. We're moving into the spring now. It's, it's warm or hot all year in Florida, but I'll tell you, when you get those cool days in February, remember I'm originally from New York, so Megan can give her answer in a second, but for me, those cool days in the winter are so wonderful to walk in the scrub, but there's not much blooming. If you come in the summertime, you're going to see a lot more flowers. And in the fall, like September, that's a great time for flowers too. You see nice purple flowers. We have a purple flower here that only grows on the Lake Wales Ridge. That's really pretty, and that you can see in September.
Yeah, the blazing star, beautiful flower over there. Over here we have the Dicerandra. It's a type of mint that's found nowhere else but Titusville Balm in Titusville. So pretty neat. I would say my favorite time to come to the scrub is early morning because it's cool, especially growing up in Florida. You know, it rains in the afternoon in the summer. So in the morning is good. Definitely during spring or winter time because the summer is very hot. So if you're gonna go out in the summer, just go in the morning. But in the summertime, I really like hammocks, oak hammocks and springs because the water stays 72 degrees year long.
Now, if you're looking for bears, which you may or may not be, come to the scrub in the fall when the acorns are on the trees, because that's when bears move into the area. And if you get here just before the sun rises early in the morning, you could potentially see a black bear. But if you don't want to see the actual bear, it's still a fun time to look for animal tracks because that sand here makes it really easy to see tracks. When we're doing tours in October, we'll often see bear tracks. And during the day when the sun is up, you don't have much of a chance of seeing a bear if you're scared of bears and you don't want to see one. But you might see some bear poop, or you might see some bear tracks, which is pretty cool. We do sometimes have panthers that come through the scrub too. We don't see a lot of panthers in the scrub here at Archbold. Most of the panthers are still further in South Florida, but we'll see like once a year, something like that. We'll see tracks from the panthers moving in here. And we just recently got a new position here, new job for somebody to study the panthers and bears. That just started a few months ago, so we're excited about that.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's super exciting. I just want to show you guys something really quick. I know we didn't get to see a gopher tortoise, but I found this, if anybody knows what it is. It's a gopher tortoise scat, which is gopher tortoise poop. And it's dry, so it's kind of old. But you can see it's got like leaves and grass. So pretty much they like to eat leaves and grass around the scrub. Yeah. Any other questions?
Excellent find, Megan. We're going to wrap it up with our last question here. And it's one for each of you, and you only get to pick one. What is your favorite plant in the scrub habitat?
I think mine is Lionia lucida or the tar flower.
Those are both.
It's a really hard
plants.
question.
That is really hard. I don't know.
I love
you know
all
what
of them.
I was just trying to see if it was here. I showed it on Tuesday on our virtual field trip. We do every Tuesday. Archbold does. There's one called Partridge Pea, and it's a really pretty yellow flower. I love that. I really like that one a lot. I wish I could show you it right here, but that might be my favorite. But you know, for me, the scrub, a lot of it really is about the plants, and there's all kinds of cool plants out here, each with their own story.
Yeah, and the cool thing about the partridge pea is that it's buzz pollinated, so it's only pollinated by bumblebee, correct?
Well, not just bumblebees, but yeah, bumblebees are the main ones. Honeybees cannot pollinate them. The honeybee cannot do a buzz pollination. A buzz pollination is you've got to vibrate at the right frequency, vibrate your body at the right frequency, for the flower to release its pollen, which is amazing. So when I was out there the other day looking at them, I could see, I was watching a bumblebee go to each flower. It was really fun.
That is really cool. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Dustin. You are so knowledgeable, and really appreciate your insight and knowledge on the scrub habitat.
Major thank you to both Dustin and Megan. Fantastic. Both of your knowledge is astounding, and I learned so much. So thank you for your time today, and thank you to all of our participants for staying a little bit extra and learning about this amazing habitat. Friendly reminder, we are launching our next virtual field trip sign up. That will be on the Marine Resources Council website, savetheirl.org tomorrow, if not this afternoon. So please register for our next virtual field trip on April 15th at 9:30 a.m. and it will be the Explorer's Guide to Stormwater. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Have a fantastic day.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.